Hello boys and girls, good afternoon. Welcome to Critical English for grade 7 to 8. Good afternoon Aliyah, good afternoon Shamar. Thank you for joining us. Today we are continuing of course with direct and indirect speech. However, today we're going to look at changing direct to indirect. So we sort of attempted to look at that last week, yes? Last class. Yes, and then we didn't necessarily get to do all of it. All right, so today we're going to look at the steps on how we go about identifying or converting direct speech into indirect speech. Let's begin the slide, and here we go. So let's go. So revision. So last class we said that what? Direct and indirect speech come under what?
Narration.
And narration is what?
Someone telling the story or
Narration in the context that we're doing. Telling the story.
No.
Yeah. What do you think, Aliyah? Well, Shamar is thinking.
Narration is telling someone what someone said or something that happened.
Alright, so yeah, narration, not narrative writing, Shamar, has to do with the act of reporting the words of the speaker. So the act of reporting the word of the speaker, and that can be what? One of two things, direct or indirect. And indirect we have what? The actual words are quoted. In indirect, actual words are
quoted.
Transformed. Indirect, we have enclosed in inverted commas, and in indirect we have what?
Not enclosed in inverted
commas. Our examples are. I can see here. She said to me, I am playing enclosed in uplifted commas because those are the exact quoted words, yes? And the other part, she said to me that she was playing. So we see a transformation of the sentence. Now, how do we get from direct to indirect? So that's what we're looking at in detail today, all right? And we're looking at 6 steps and trying to get through them, of course, in the little time that we have, to make sure that we have a better understanding of how to convert direct to indirect speech. So step 1. Step 1 says what?
Identify the following.
Identify the following. So what are we looking for? We're looking for the subject. What's the subject?
Thing that the sentence or story is talking about.
The sentence.
Yes, sentence.
So what the sentence is about answers the question who or what. So the noun or the pronoun. Yes, Shamar?
Yes.
And another way we can decipher or decode the subject is to find out what is doing the action of the verb. So the subject is also the doer of the action of the verb. Alright? Object is the receiver of the action of the verb in question. So the object is what receives the action of the verb. And then we want to look for the reporting verb. So we want to make sure we identify the reporting verb. She said. What's the reporting verb?
She said.
She said. What's the reporting verb there? What do you think? Said, correct. She would be the subject of that sentence. Alright. And then we want to be able to identify whether it is first person, second person, third person. Alright? And then we want to identify the tense of the verb. So those are the 4 things we want to identify. Okay? We want to identify the subject and object. We want to identify the reporting verb. We want to identify the first, second, or third person. And then we want to identify the tense. Let's move on. Change the reporting verb. Change the reporting verb. So when we move from direct to indirect, the verb said to becomes what? Told. It's in your handout. said to become told, said become say to become tell, and says to become tell. So we see that the verbs on the reporting verb, so in some cases it still remains the same, but in some cases it transforms from one form to another. And we're going to look at how that transformation occurs a little bit later. Rule 3, and this shouldn't have rule, should be step. My apologies. Step 3 should have replace our uplifted commas, and we discussed this last class, yes? Replacing the uplifted comma with the conjunction that. All right, replacing the uplifted comma with the commas with the conjunction that. Step 4, change of the pronoun. So if we have the first person pronoun, the first person becomes the first person in the direct speech, in the quoted speech, becomes the subject. All right, we're going to see how that operates in a minute. So the first person in the direct quotation, because we've already accounted for she said, yeah? So we're making the transformation now to the quoted speech. All right, those in uplifted commas. So the first person becomes the subject, all right, pronoun, in the sense that I will become what? She said, I am going. So what's the, what would I be transferred to?
The second person.
No. Subject.
She said that she is going.
She. So it would go from I to she, because we're reporting what she said, yeah? She said she will be, and we would make the transformation. The second person becomes the object, and for the third person, there is no change. All right? Moving on, and we move to step 6. Step 6 says, and this is something that we would have done earlier in the term, yeah? Verb tenses. Can we remember those lessons? Sort of? Yeah. All right. So change of verb tense, change of tense. So for the verbs in this present tense, this is what the transformation looks like. All right? So for those verbs that are simple present tense, they become what? Simple past. So we transfer or convert them to simple past. Those in present continuous now becomes past continuous. Those present perfect becomes past perfect. Present perfect continuous becomes past perfect continuous. All right? So we're moving from one to another. Present to past, regardless of whether it's simple, whether it's present continuous, whether it's present perfect or present perfect continuous. All right? And we sort of did some groundwork there. Yes? Especially with the simple present continuous and the present perfect. Okay? So the only one that might give you a little struggle here and there perhaps would be the present perfect continuous. Yeah? Good. And then the past. So simple past. Now we move from present to past, and we always start with the simple past. Yes? Simple past will now convert to the past perfect. The past continuous, past perfect continuous. There is no change to those verbs. All right? So they can't change to anything else. That's where the change stops. Right?
Yeah.
Making sense? You're following?
Yes.
Alright, we're going to see how the rule works when we come to look at an example and actually trying to use these steps to help us get through the example. Alright? And then we have future. So future tense, we have things like what? Will and shall, which now becomes what?
Would.
Would and should. can and may now becomes could and or might. Alright? And then the final step says what? Time specific words. And so some of these words can, because they're time specific, alright, we transfer them. So, for example, here, the next day, tomorrow, the next day. I think something is wrong to there. Let me go back. Let me see what it should be. Wrong. 06. Oh. Here should be dear. So correct that on your handout. Here should be dear. Alright. Tomorrow. So when we're converting here, it moves from here to dear. So we're taking out the next day. Following Alia? That's good. So we have here in the indirect speech, it now becomes what?
Dear.
Dear. Tomorrow becomes the next day. Today, that day. Yesterday, the previous day. This, that, now, then. Alright? So these are time specific words that now there is now a shift or a change from one set of words to another to account for the indirect speech. Alright?
Yes.
Alright, so let's get to an example and see if we can understand or apply, what we would have done. Let's look at our example. And we have 2 sentences and we're going to try to utilize the rules to apply for those 2 sentences. Sentence 1 says what?
She said to me.
Said
To me.
To me.
Uplifted, comma. Uplifted, commas.
Uplifted, comma. I mean, quoting directly what she said now, yeah? What did she say?
I am playing football.
I am playing football.
With you now.
You now. Full stop. Close uplifted comma. Alright, so what's the first thing that we've got to do? What's the first step?
Identify the following. I have to identify the subject and object.
Alright, so what's the subject here? Make sure I'm guiding you right. Yes. So what's the subject? And we're looking at this part first, yeah? We haven't gone to the quotation yet. So we're starting with here. So what's the subject here? She. So this is the subject. Me would be the
Object.
And what would said be?
The reporting verb.
Reporting verb. So what we've done so far, we've identified the subject, we've identified the object, we've identified the reporting verb, right? And now we move on to here. What is this? I is what person and the pronoun. I, me, those are come for what?
Is it first person?
First person. So this is the first person. Alright. Anything else?
The tense shows a change.
What the tense? What is the tense? I'm playing. Yes. And I'm playing is what?
Present.
Present. Just present?
Present
I
tense.
am.
Present.
Tense.
ing.
Present continuous.
Continuous. Yes. continuous. All right, so we've identified the tense, yes? All right, can we move on now?
Yes, yes, miss.
All right, so what are we to do now?
Change the reporting verb.
Change the reporting verb to what? So the reporting verb said becomes what?
Told.
Told. All right. So now we are saying what? She told me. We have to take out to, yeah?
Yes.
So said to becomes told, yeah?
Yes.
She said, she told me. What else? What are we to do?
That we replace the uplifted commas
So
with
taking the uplifted commas out, and now it becomes
That.
replace it with the conjunction that. All right. She told me that.
She was. She was.
Change of pronoun. What pronoun? Pronoun.
I.
The first person pronoun, and the first person pronoun becomes what?
The subject.
The subject, and in this case, how do we account for I? Who's the subject?
She.
So she told me that.
She.
And then we change the tense. So the present continuous tense goes to what? Past continuous. And how do we make this past continuous? By changing which part of the verb? So goes to what?
Was.
She was playing. Anything else we need to do? So we have past continuous, yeah?
Change the pronoun.
She was playing. She told me that she was playing. What was she playing?
Football.
Football.
With you.
With you? You becomes what?
Me.
You is second person. Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which becomes what?
The object.
Object, which is now accounting for. What pronoun are we accounting for? Playing with
Me.
me. Now becomes what?
Then.
So we now have our sentence that says what? What's the report in direct? So this is the direct speech. Yes?
Yes, miss.
And this is the translation of the indirect speech. And what does it read?
She told me that she was playing football with me then.
All right. Did we see how this transformation took place?
Yes.
Yes, we had to follow the steps. All right. So can I give you one to try now?
Yes, miss.
Yes. So let me see you try number 2, and then we're gonna talk about what you did and how you got there. Yes. Number 2 says what? David said.
Rebecca
said. Said 2. 2 is missing from there, so we're going to correct that. David said to Rebecca, comma. What do we go now? Into the quoted words. I started. It's a little too close for my liking. I started.
A new job.
A new
Job.
Yeah? Alright, so there you go. Apply the rules and let's see what you come up with. let me add one more word so that we can apply the last step of the rule, yes? He started the job yesterday. I want you to put all of the steps in process. I started a new job yesterday. Alright, are we done?
Yes.
Almost done? You're done, Shamar?
Yes, between the subject and the object.
Let's finish you just replace the sentence.
What?
So how did you get there with that identifying the subject and the object?
No, I mean like
Oh,
putting the
as in
S.
to do the format on the board?
No, I'm putting like the S on.
Oh, okay. Are you getting through, Adia? That is not very convincing, you know, Adia. This is such a struggle. All right, so let's see where we are. Come, Shamar, tell us what you did and how did you arrive. So tell me what to do. So guide me through the process, please. What's the first thing that we have to do? We have to identify. What are we identifying?
The subject.
All right, so what is the subject?
David.
David is the subject, yeah.
And
Anything else?
the object is Rebecca.
Object is Rebecca. What's the reporting verb? What? Oh, no, I'm not telling you guys anything. I'm just writing things. Yeah.
Said
to.
Said to is the reporting verb. Anything else?
It's first person.
So this is first person. What is this?
This one I couldn't find.
It's a past tense, yeah? Is it a past tense?
Past, present.
Sure, what is past present? Started, but consider which one of the past tense.
Past perfect.
Past perfect has something else in it. So the very first one, simple past, yeah? So this is simple past. So when we converting, what are we converting this to? Check your hand up, check your hand up.
Past perfect.
So this goes to past perfect. Alright, we're almost out of time, so let's go. Anything else we need to identify here? In this transformation? Yesterday becomes what?
The previous, the previous day.
The previous day. So could we convert now?
Yeah.
What should we have?
David.
This becomes what?
Told.
Told. So David told
Rebecca.
What's next?
That.
That. So we're replacing. Why are we putting that here?
The conjunction.
Because
We are replacing
the uplifted commas with the conjunction.
uplifted commas with the conjunction that. That. He.
Started.
No. Past perfect. Had started. Let me just move this chair quickly. He had started
A new job.
a new job.
The previous day.
The previous day. Alright? Means therefore we gotta do some brushing up on our verb tense. Yeah?
Yeah.
And remembering, of course, going back to the first, I think it's the first few lessons on verb tense and how we transfer and move from one tense to another, yeah?
Yes.
So you've got to brush up and do so. Remember I told you everything in language is related, yes? So you've got to know everything, and part of speech is the backbone of the language. So if we don't know about the speeches, we're in trouble, all right? So let's look at what we did today. Today we looked at converting what?
Indirect speech. Indirect speech. Indirect speech.
Converting direct speech to indirect speech, and we use a 6-step method, isn't that so? Well, let's go through the method for the purpose of understanding what we would have done today. Yes? The first thing we have to do is to what?
Identify.
It's the identification process. And what are we identifying?
The subject.
Subject.
Object.
Reporting verb, yes.
First person. Third
The person of the pronoun, and in this case it's first person, yes.
And tense.
And the tense, whether it is present continuous or simple past, as in the examples shown, right? What else do we need to do?
Change the reporting verb.
We change the reporting verb, and in the cases that we have here, the reporting verb said to become
Told.
told. Anything else? What do we do?
Replace the uplifted commas.
Replace uplifted commas with
With conjunction.
That. Anything else?
Change the pronoun to the pronoun.
Change of pronoun. So in this case, the first person pronoun becomes what?
The
The
subject.
subject pronoun. In this case, he. And in the first example, she. Anything else what do we need to do?
Change of tense.
Change of tense. So the simple past in this case becomes what?
Past.
Past perfect. And in this case it becomes past continuous. Yes? Was playing. Past continuous. Yeah?
Yes.
And then what else do we have to do?
Update the specific. Update time specific word.
And in the two sentence, what are the time specific words?
I'm playing on yesterday.
I'm playing. Time
No,
specific
no.
word. Time. So we underline them. Time specific word. And what about here? Time specific word. And now becomes
Then
then. And yesterday becomes
the previous
previously.
day.
And hence we have the two direct speech. Alright?
Okay.
Alright? Did we enjoy the lesson today? We're able to sort of move on now to writing report, doing a good writing, as against simple basic direct speech. And remember, we said that direct speech, we try to avoid using direct speech in reporting because we want to avoid conflicting what the speakers are saying. So we can't always say in one report, she said this and he said that and they said this and we said that, right? So we want to flow. And because we want to flow, that is why we make use of the indirect, let me correct it, indirect speech. All right? So I trust that you would have learned a lot today. and that you can put it into practice. Alia give me a very unreassuring face, like, Miss, give us something very hard today. So practice over the weekend, and that is all the time we have for today. Thank you very much for joining us. Please stay tuned for math, and I will see you next Wednesday.
Good afternoon, boys and girls, and welcome to Critical Mathematics once again. And before we get into anything else, you have some homework for me? So, let me see your presentation of your net of a solid. Okay, let me see, Aaron. Okay, fold it, set it.
With paper, says number.
Alright, no problem. You have the ID. Let me see here, Azalea. Don't be afraid.
I'm just hearing up.
It's okay. Alrighty.
What are the things for smaller? I'm supposed to be close.
Okay. Not bad. And I did my homework too because I did one too. Alright, where we can fold it. Try to get it as much as possible as a circle. And we close the bottom and the lid. Alright, so we have this. So what I need you to do is go take 30 seconds, look around your room. Look around the room, and get me a cylindrical object somewhere. So, no, not what you made. Yes. So up, quickly. Get your item and come back. Whatever it may be. All right.
Okay, bring this.
Yes. Put it on the table. All right. So, Alia, please describe your object.
Well, it's a cylinder. It's a battery.
It's a battery.
That. It's a solid.
It is solid. Anything else? All right. Shamar, let me hear about yours.
It's the shape of the cylinder.
Yes.
With two circles, top and bottom.
It has two circles, top and bottom.
It's big
It's big
and heavy.
and heavier, solid. All right, great. So both of you would have identified with some sort of cylindrical object, right? So yes, you're doing mathematics, but in a real life situation, you would know and you will be able to identify a cylindrical object, right? Where we have, as the painting is a perfect and a big example of it, as Shamar said. We have a circle at the top, a circle at the bottom. That is where we identify with the two lids here. And then we have the curved surface there, where if we fold our net, we can get the curved surface, right? So if we cut the tin open, if we cut the tin straight down, open the lids, what shape do we have with this curved surface area?
A square or rectangle.
A square or a rectangle, right? So we would have identified how many shapes in a cylinder. How many types of shapes?
Three.
Three? What are the three?
Two.
Two, what?
There's no
Circles.
Circles and
Triangles or
triangle?
No,
square. Square.
Square or
rectangle.
rectangle, right? Because it just depends on the height of it or the width of it, if it's similar. Alright, so let's look at the screen. Good. So, what is a cylinder? Read, Alia.
A A cylinder is a three-dimensional shape that is round in the middle and flat on the top and bottom.
All right, so as we have with a tin, we would have seen that. Shamar?
The top and bottom of a cylinder are circles. All points on the side surface have the same distance to the center line. The side surface is rectangular when expanded.
Good, as we would have said with the net, if we cut the tin open and we flatten it or expand it, we will get a rectangle or maybe a square. And did you see the type of objects that are all cylindrical? And
Yes.
Aliyah would have gotten one of the batteries, and you would have gotten also a tin, right? So as long as the object has that kind of shape, it is a cylindrical object, right? So as I said, everything in mathematics we need to relate to in real life situation, right? So we might want to say, why we want to calculate the, find the area of a cylinder, but maybe you need to find the area of a tin or the area of some other object, right? So let's continue. So in some cases, as you would have noticed, when you're making the net, your circles don't have to remain where they are, right? They can be any part of the ends or so, because when you close the circle, it will still lock at some point, right? So it doesn't matter if it's in the middle or at any one of the ends. It doesn't matter if one circle is here and one circle is on the other side. Just when you close it, wherever it is, it will close, right? Let's continue.
In this video, I'm going to discuss how to calculate the surface area of a cylinder. For a cylinder, we have the top, we have the bottom, we have the side. It turns out, when you unwrap the cylinder, the side is just a rectangle. The top is just a circle. The bottom is another circle. Adding the area of these three objects will give us the surface area of the cylinder. The only tricky part is the length of the rectangle. It turns out, if I wrap this back around, you can easily see that the length of the rectangle is the circumference of the circle of the top of the cylinder. Again, the length is just the circumference of a circle, which is 2 pi r, where r is just the radius of the cylinder. The area of each circle is pi r squared, where r is the radius of the cylinder. And the area of the rectangle is height times pi r. Adding the area of these three objects gives us the surface area of a cylinder. I'm going to leave it at that, and I'm not going to try to simplify the equation. There's a lot of different ways to write the equation, but I'm just going to leave it in this form. I didn't mention it, but r is the radius of the cylinder, represented by just r in that black line there. And then,
Okay, so let's look at there. Did you recognize how we came up with the rectangle
Yes.
and the two circles?
Yes.
All right, let's look back at the screen where you have in a circle, we have the radius, right? And we have two circles, so we need to account for both circles, the top and the bottom of the circle of the cylinder, when we are finding the total surface area. So we have the two circles, the top and the bottom, and we have the rectangular part, which was the curved surface area. What was one of the things that they said about getting the length of the rectangle? Where did it come from? They said something. If you missed it, that is why I'm asking. Could you recall?
From Circular shape.
Good, but that area would be called what? Here. What is it called for the circle?
Vertice.
No, the circumference. Right? So, the length of the rectangle is actually the circumference of a circle. And the circumference of a circle is the distance around the circle. Right? So if, let me see that string, how far can it go? Give me, put that in here. Alright, say we have this string here. Good?
Yeah.
And this string, we have a circle. So it's a perfect circle, right? Good. So this is a circle. And around this circle is called a what?
Circumference.
The circumference. So if we cut this string and we open it, isn't it the same circle that we had just now? Huh?
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yes, miss.
Isn't it the same piece of string?
Yes.
That was a circle. So for instance, the circumference of this circle is 10. The distance around here is 10. Now we're taking this same string, forget about the extra piece, right? And we open it. What would be the length of this? 10. Because it's the same thing. We expand. Even if we want to make it into a different shape, would be the same length. Right? So all it is for the cylinder, when the cylinder is closed, the rectangular part here would look like this. But when it cuts open, it creates the length of the rectangle, which it would be the same thing as the circumference. Here, of course here. Do we understand it?
Yes, miss.
Sure?
Yes, miss.
Sure?
Yes.
Alright, good. So, as was shown, the rectangle, we want to find the area of the rectangle. The area of the rectangle we know would be what? To your, if you can recall, what is the area of a rectangle?
Length and width.
Length times width, right? But in this case, we have, well, we can say height, it can be same the length and the width, but remember, the length here was a circle first, and we said it is a circumference, right? So that is why you would have seen in the formula, you have height by 2 pi r, because 2 pi r represent the circumference of a circle, right? If you can recall from even in your previous grades, 2 pi r would represent the formula for the circumference, to find the circumference. So sketch the formula down there quickly. Sketch the triangle, the rectangle, the circle too, so you have an idea of what you're looking at visually. And we may want to ask ourselves, what is pi? It's a mathematical symbol used to find certain things when you, especially when you're using circle and so on, right? And it comes with a value. We ready?
Yes, miss.
Alright, good. So, let's go. Alright, let's continue.
In this video, I'm going to discuss how to
I
calculate.
don't want you to go there. Alright, So what we're going to do now is take that formula and looking at an example of how we can calculate it. But in this case, we're not using the value of pi as yet. We're leaving pi. Pi will remain in the answer. That little symbol that we see there will remain in the answer. Right? So let's look at this video.
Hey, this is Mr. Masonette, and what we're going to do in this video is quickly solve to find the surface area of a cylinder in terms of pi. We're going to use this equation right here. 2 pi r squared plus 2 pi r h. Now, this equation is really broken into two main parts. This part of our equation will allow us to find the area of the two circular surfaces, and this part of our formula will allow us to figure out what the lateral area is of our cylinder. And remember, the lateral area just means the side of the shape. So what we're going to do first is identify the value of radius and the value of height in this problem. So we're going to rewrite this as 2 pi times radius squared, and in this case our radius is 10. So we substitute r with 10, and then on the right hand side of our plus sign we have radius again, which we substitute with 10 again. We have to multiply that by the height of the cylinder, which is 25 centimeters. Alright, now that we have plugged all of our values into the appropriate places, what we're going to do next is simplify the left-hand part of our equation before this plus sign here, and simplify everything to the right-hand side of our plus sign. So we're going to take 10 to the second power, which is 100, and then we take 100 and multiply that by 2, which is 200. And we have to take 200 and multiply that by pi. And 200 times pi will give us the area of the two circular surfaces. And to the right of our plus sign, we have to multiply 25 times 10, which is 250, and 250 by 2, which is 500. So 500 pi would give us the lateral area of our cylinder. And next we can combine these two terms here by adding 200 pi and 500 pi, which is 700 pi. So it was actually that simple. The surface area of the cylinder in terms of pi is 700 pi square centimeters.
Great. So, could you say to me how we got the 2 in front of the pi r square? Not sure? Look back at the previous note that you took. Look at the pi r squares that you had and explain to me how you think they got the 2 in front of the pi r square. Yes.
Because you're looking for both of the circles.
2 circles. So instead of looking for the area of one circle and the area of the other circle, you look for the area of 2 circles because the circles are the same. Right? So we just multiply it by 2. They're exact. What about the 2? What about the 2 pi r height? 2 pi r h?
The height of the circle.
The height of the circle. So the h represents the height. And we know rectangle is length by width. But in this case, we know one is the height and one is the circumference. Right? But it's the same length by width. It's just that where it came from another pattern that you can use. Right? So substituting the value of r into the expression there, where we have 2 pi, because we're not doing anything with pi, and we have 10 square. That 10 represents r. Agree? According to the shape. you have 10 cm, that little line that runs from the center to the circumference, that represents the radius, right? And the 10, that is the length of that line. So instead of replacing r, we would replace it with 10, right? And when we go to the other side, the right hand side, where you have 2 pi 10 and 25, what does the 10 and the 25 represent?
The 25 does represent
Which part?
the length.
The length, or according to
Height. This is the height.
pi, or what is the height?
25.
The 25? Good. The 25 is the height, because if you look at the height of the cylinder, you will see that you have 25 there, and the 10 is the
Circumference.
no. The 10 is the r.
Radius.
Yes. So let's look at the formula of itself. 2 pi r square plus 2 pi r square. So what we're doing, we're replacing the value of r and the value of h. So instead of putting the letter r and h, we put in the value of it. So we won't see r anymore. But the value of r is 10, and the value of h is 25. So we don't want to use r and h anymore. We want to know what r and h is. So how did we get 200?
You multiply, no, you 10 square.
10 square. So 10 square means what?
10 multiplied by 2.
10 multiplied by
2.
Sure?
10 multiplied by 10.
10 multiplied by 10. So 10 tens?
100.
100. So how we move from 100 now to 200?
From this.
Say what you're saying.
I don't know. I don't say just. Is it 2 pi?
Good. We multiplied by the 2,
Yes.
right? Because we're keeping the pi. So same thing, 10 by 25. 10 multiplied by 25 will give us
250.
250. And a trick I would say, anytime you run multiplying a number by 10, just add a 0.
Yeah.
And your answer is there. No matter how big the number is, you multiply by 10, add a 0 to it. Good. So we have 250. And what did we do with the 250?
We
Multiplied by 2. Right? So that is how we end up with the 500. Next, what we did?
we add the we multiply 200 by pi and add the 500.
Good. But in this case, we just keep in the pi's, right?
Yeah.
And because both of the terms are similar, are the same in terms of pi, we can add them. So we actually have 700 pi's. Okay?
Yes.
All right. So I'm going to show you now. I'm adding to that work in there. I'm adding the total surface area, and according to our answer there we have 700 pi cm square. Good. Now remember I told you before that pi has a value,
Yes.
right? In this case we look at this. We use pi as 22 over 7. Good? So now that we know pi is 22 over 7, we can replace it here. Right?
Yes, miss.
What sign mathematical operation do I put here?
Multiplication.
Multiplication. And pi is 22 over
7.
7 cm square. Great. So can't I put 700 over 1 here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Just to making it look the same way. Good. So how can we calculate that?
We can cancel out the 7 by 7.
So we can say 7 into 7 is
1,
1. And 7 into 700 is
7,
7 into 7,
100.
1.
1. 7 into 0,
0.
7 into 0.
100.
So how much we have?
100.
Good, but are we finished? Can we cancel anything else? Top and bottom. Is there anything to cancel from top and bottom? No. So what we have remaining at the top?
22. I mean 100.
100 multiplied by 2 cm square. So remember just now when we multiply by 10, what we did?
We
Add a 0. So if we multiply by 100,
We add
add 2 zeros.
add 2 zeros. So all I need is the other number and add 2 zeros to it. So now we would have completed solving for the total surface area of this cylinder. From the first part that you would have copied, and to complete the working using the value of pi, 22/7, work it out, do your cancellation. What is left, you multiply, and you get your answer. One thing to note, pi can also be used as, if we put this on the calculator, or if we say this, 7 into 22. How much times 7 can go into 22? You think? On estimation.
4.
4, 7 fours?
No, it would be 3.
It will be 3, 7 trees.
21.
Agree? Good. 7 trees, 21. But we know that it cannot, 3, the most times it can go into it is 3 times. Right? So now we'll have to a point here. 7 trees, 21, how much remaining?
1.
1. So, say for instance we have this one here, and we have a 0. 7 into 10,
So going 10 one time.
1 time. How much remain?
3.
3. So we have a 3 and a 0. 7 into 30.
This is 27 close.
7 trees, 21, 7 fours,
27.
7 fours,
20.
28. So 7 into 30 is 4. Right? And we could keep going on and on. So we could actually have a decimal value of pi. Right? So that was just a little thing. However, we know that a cylinder or a cylindrical object has how many circles?
2.
2 circles. And if you expand the curved surface area, what would you get?
A
A rectangle or a square. So when we want to find the surface area, we need to find for 2 circles and a rectangle or a square, which it depends on the dimension of it, right? Good. So you would have learned that there are several cylindrical objects that you can compare to and you can recognize, and even if you want to find the surface area of it. So when you're thinking about math, just don't think about the formulas and that you have to work with numbers. Think about our real life situation, that these things can apply to every section in life, right? So you guys have a blessed afternoon. Thank you for your presence, and we will see you next week. Come for your English and your mathematical session. Good afternoon and later.